Hi, it's Mitch from PickDawgz.com. Saturday, May 25th, 2024. We're doing all of the first halves and first 5 innings for today. Of course, we do this video every day, and it just covers those first halves and first 5 innings of each game. As we roll into the fall and we have college basketball and college football, gonna probably have to cut it back a little bit, but we'll still have a very long video. Just can't cover every game on the board right now. One thing we do quickly each video, look at today in history. And today in history, 1977, the first Star Wars was released. Of course, as sports bettors, we always need all the help we can get. May the force be with you. But of course, let's beat the books together today, whatever it takes. And of course, let's do it in quick order, doing it in the first 5 innings in the first half of each game. We kick today's video off with Game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals as the series moves to Indiana and the Pacers are hosting the Celtics. The Pacers are pretty good-sized underdogs in this one, despite winning 11 straight games at home. We know they let Game 1 slip away, as they certainly had it. All they had to do was inbound the ball and were unable to do that. Celtics got it to overtime and got the win. The Celtics have been very proficient against the spread in the first half of all of their games, returning pretty good money. Meanwhile, though, the Pacers have won about 66% of the time outright in the first half of their games. So when you have a strong Celtics team in the first half, you have a strong Pacers team in the first half, well, what exactly to do? Well, what I always do is I always go for the value. We're going to roll with the Pacers on the money line, go for the nice payout here, and that'll be our first pick for today's video. For our next game, we head to Detroit to Comerica Park, where the Tigers are hosting the Blue Jays. It's Reese Olson on the bump for the Tigers and Jose Barrios on the mound for the Jays. Reese Olson, his numbers are actually getting better. He has lights out ERA for the season, but like I said, his numbers are getting better, while Barrios ERA over 7 in his last 3 starts. We look at the way these teams are hitting the baseball versus right-handed pitching. The Tigers, 277 over their last 10 games versus right-handed pitching, while the Blue Jays at 265. You know, what we saw last night after, a really rough day on Thursday was the Tigers take out some frustration. Gotta say, I think that both these teams certainly have a lot of growing to do, certainly have a lot of work to do this season. And both these pitchers, well, we know that these guys are the top end of the rotation, but at the same time, I just like the way Olson's pitching better and he's at home. We're gonna roll with the Tigers in this one, first 5. For our next game, we head to Citi Field in New York, where the Mets are taking on the Giants. Luis Severino on the bump for the Mets, and it is Jordan Hicks on the mound for the Giants. If you haven't been watching the Giants games this week, the last 3 games they've had, they've come back by 4 runs or more. The last time that's happened, when a road team has rallied from 4 runs or more down 3 games in a row, 1930. So the Giants are playing some historic type baseball right here. Some people might want to call it a Mets bullpen meltdown, a Pirates bullpen meltdown, whatever you call it. This is a Giants team that simply doesn't quit. But in this video, we're looking at the first 5 innings, and the problem that the Mets have here as well is Luis Severino is regressing in his pitching with a 3.48 season ERA and 5.94 though in his last 3 starts. Meanwhile, the Giants absolutely hitting the cover off the ball. I'm going to take the Giants in this one as our first 5 pick. For our next game, we go to Target Field in Minnesota, where the Twins are hosting the world champion Texas Rangers. Chris Paddock gets the ball for the Twins, and it's Michael Lorenzen on the mound for the Rangers. We know Lorenzen well. This is a guy that when he was in Cincinnati walked us out of a few wins, but at the same time, we also know that he's thrown some decent stuff as well. Meanwhile, Paddock pitching well above his career numbers as well for the Twins this season. And both these pitchers kind of hanging in those mid to high 3s when it comes to ERA, not just over the course of the season, but in their last 3 starts as well. But really, the outlier statistic here in this particular matchup is that neither of these teams are hitting right-handed pitching at all over their last 10 games. 193 for the Rangers, 181 for the Twins. We just can't count on any runs to be scored at all in this game, let alone in the first 5 innings. We're going to take the under first 5, and that's going to be our pick for this game. For our next matchup, we head to the south side of Chicago, where the White Sox are hosting the Orioles. It's Eric Fede on the bump for the White Sox and Albert Suarez on the mound for the Orioles. We see Suarez. What we see is a bullpen game, a lot like yesterday with the Rays. We saw Armstrong. We knew it was a bullpen game. We see Suarez. It's a bullpen game for the Orioles, but the Orioles over their last 10 games, the bullpen has kind of ballooned as far as the ERA goes to 4.38. Now, Fede is actually for the White Sox. He was the KBO, that's Korean Baseball Organization, MVP last season. He had been in Major League Baseball before that, went to Korea, and now he's back. You know, the thing is he's pitching really well for the White Sox this season. 2.37 ERA over his last 3 starts, 3.10 for the season. When it comes to hitting right-handed pitching, well, the Orioles, not as good as they are against lefties. I think all the value here is on the White Sox, and we'll take them for the first 5 of this game. For our next game, we head to Washington, where the Washington Nationals are hosting the Seattle Mariners. It's Logan Gilbert gets the ball here for the Mariners, and it's Trevor Williams on the mound for the Nationals. Trevor Williams is one of those pitchers that kind of every team has, kind of goes to the back end of the rotation, logs 5-6 innings, just tries to keep the team in it. But this year he's delivered much more than that, at least in the early going here, where he has an ERA at 2.35 and 2.51 over his last 3 games, so he hasn't tailed off at all. Meanwhile, Logan Gilbert with the 3.20 ERA has ballooned to 7.56 over his last 3 starts. I know the Mariners are hitting righties slightly better over their last 10 games, but when you look at the season numbers, it's the Nationals that hit righties actually better, just slightly better than the Mariners. I don't like the way Gilbert's pitching, and I think really that's what this comes down to. I'm going to roll with the Nationals at home, and that's going to be my pick for the first 5 of this game. For our next game, we head to Pittsburgh, where the Pirates are taking on the Braves. It's Mitch Keller on the bump for the Pirates and Ronaldo Lopez on the mound for the Braves. You know, Lopez has been outstanding this season. Unsustainable ERA numbers, though. When you look at, his ERA in the mid-1s, I don't think anyone can sustain that over the course of the season. At least we never see it. Meanwhile, on the other side, Mitch Keller with an ERA in the 3s, but over his last 3 starts, just a 1.29 ERA. So he is certainly at the top of his game right now as well. The thing is that we saw that the Pirates not willing to back down from the Braves, and they're actually hitting right-handed pitching a little bit better than the Braves are over their last 10 games, 242 average compared to the Braves at 240. When you look at the course of the season, well, the Braves hitting about 25, 26 points better than what the Pirates are versus right-handed pitching. But I have to say, when it comes to value, you got a guy pitching as well as Keller, might as well take a shot with the Pirates. And that'll be our pick for the first 5. For our next game, we head to Oakland, where the A's are taking on the Houston Astros. JP Sears on the mound for the A's, while it's Spencer Arrighetti on the mound for the Astros. You know, the Astros starting to pick up the pace in the American League West, where nobody seems to want it. So certainly has left the door open for the Astros to come back. As Mike Tyson used to say, they're playing with bad intentions. But the thing is that, the Astros do not hit left-handed pitching nearly as well as they've hit right-handed pitching, especially over their last 10 games where they're hitting just 228 versus left-handed pitching. Meanwhile, the A's hit right-handed pitching significantly better than they hit left-handed pitching. Over their last 10 games, they're hitting lefties at just 146, while they hit righties at 255 over their last 10 games. For the season, the A's still better versus righties than versus lefties, and the Astros still better versus righties than lefties as well. I'm going to roll with the A's in the first 5. My pick for this game. For our next game, we head to Fenway Park in Boston, where the Red Sox are taking on the Brewers. Nick Pivetta gets the ball for the Red Sox. It's Colin Rea on the mound for the Brewers. The Brewers just really handled the Red Sox on Friday night, which was not unusual because the Brewers are the kings of interleague play and the Red Sox are one of the worst home teams in baseball. Pivetta and Rhea are two pitchers also on the regression mode here, as Rhea has gone with his 4.07 season ERA all the way up to 7.2 for his last 3 starts. Meanwhile, when we look at Pivetta, he's going in the wrong direction as well with his ERA over 4 in his last 3 starts. The thing is, those are closer to Pivetta's real career numbers. When it comes to hitting right-handed pitching, well, the Brewers have a clear edge in that category as well. 257 versus 234 over their last 10 games and 262 to 239 over the course of the season. It's all Brewers for me in the first 5, and that's my pick for this game. For our next game, we go to Tampa Bay, where the Rays are hosting the Kansas City Royals. Aaron Savali on the bump for the Rays, and it's Brady Singer on the mound for the Royals. You know, Savali just hasn't really developed into that frontline starter that the Rays had hoped for with that 5.92 ERA and 5.40 over his last 3 starts, while Singer playing pretty well, 2.70 for the season as far as his ERA goes and 3.31 over his last 5 games. You know, the Royals have quietly won 7 games in a row. They are pounding the baseball, and while I continue to say, well, maybe they don't have the depth to go the distance, well, they keep playing better and better as time goes on here. So tough to say that the Royals aren't going to be around for the long haul. We look at the way these teams are hitting right-handed pitching. For the season, the Royals at 242 and the Rays at 230. And then when you go to the last 10 games, so what have you done for me lately? 265 for the Royals and 211 for the Rays. Throwing the pitching matchup, it's all Royals for me in the first 5. For our next game, we head to St. Louis, where the Cardinals are taking on the Cubs. With Friday's rain out, we have a pitching change already in here for the Cardinals. We'll have to watch this one closely to see if the Cubs have a pitching change as well. But right now, it's Jameson Taillon listed for the Cubs, and I'm showing Miles Mikolas on the mound for the Cardinals. You know, the thing about Mikolas is his season numbers have been terrible. But the thing is, 7 of the last 10 times he started against the Cubs, the Cardinals have won, making him a Cubs killer. Of course, the last 2 times he started against them, which were both last year when the Cardinals were terrible, the Cubs won those games. But I think last year was a throwout year for the Cardinals. You know, we look at Taillon, his numbers are heading in the wrong direction, but closer to his career numbers. We look at the way these teams are hitting the baseball. Oh man, the Cardinals just absolutely murdering right-handed pitching of late, hitting 281, while the Cubs at just 185 over their last 10 games. I'm rolling with the Cardinals in this one for the first 5. For our next game, we go to Cincinnati, to Great American Ballpark, where the Reds are hosting the Los Angeles Dodgers. Boy, reading the YouTube comments on my regular videos, you would think the Dodgers never lose a game. But actually, they're just 5-5 in their last 10 games. So if you've been betting them at those gigantic prices, man, are you losing a lot of money? And that's why, well, people, they might dispute my anti-Dodgers picks a lot. But look at the value we're getting on the other side. In this one, Hunter Green gets the ball for the Reds. It's Walker Buehler on the mound for the Dodgers. Buehler has not returned to his Cy Young type form, 4.05 ERA in the action we've seen him thus far. Hunter Green, 3.22 ERA and 3.44 over his last 3 starts. Meanwhile, when we look at the way these teams are hitting, the Reds really not hitting righties all that well, but the Dodgers certainly hitting them. But what we saw in these Dodgers-Reds games is always a lot of runs. I got to roll with the over in the first 5 as my pick for this game. For our next game, we head to Coors Field in Colorado, where it's the Rockies taking on the Phillies. Dakota Hudson on the bump for the Rockies. It's Aaron Nola on the mound for the Phillies. As hot as the Phillies have been, well, just more proof on Friday night that there's a reason they play the games, and why I always say the best teams in baseball still lose 60 times a year, so the value starts always on the underdog. We'll see if we can find some value here as well, as Dakota Hudson, the starter for the Rockies, comes in with a 5.89 ERA, 5.79 over his last 3 starts, while Aaron Nola for the Phillies, 3.05 for the season and 2.49 ERA in his last 3 starts. We all know the Phillies can swing the bats, and certainly have been doing so. 249 versus righties, and 238 versus righties over their last 10 games. But the Rockies have been hitting the ball actually better than the Phillies. And you know what? The Rockies have been streaky, and when they're streaky good, I'll take a shot on them here, and that'll be my first 5 pick. For our next game, we head to the Big A in Anaheim, where the Angels are taking on the Guardians. I'll tell you, I couldn't have been more wrong about this one on Friday, but you know, you win some, you lose some, you take a lot of dogs, and you still end up in plus money. That's where I live. But the thing is, you know, Soriano on the mound here for the Angels in this one, up against Tanner Bibby. Of course, the Guardians, one of the hottest teams in baseball right now, and the Angels, well, they are the Angels. But Soriano has been hit and miss, mostly hit with, it's either 4 runs or 1 or 0 runs. He's given up 4 runs 3 times. Meanwhile, on the other side, Bibby has been, you know, really not all that strong, but 3.93 ERA for the season, 2.76 over his last 3 starts. Angels hitting righties significantly better than the Guardians are, and I think the way Soriano's been pitching, I think he gives the Angels a legitimate shot to at least keep them in it early. I'll tell you, I think all the values on the Angels, I'm going to take them here for the first 5 innings, and that's going to be my pick for this game. For our next game, we head to Petco Park in San Diego, where the Padres are taking on the Yankees. Have to believe that Yu Darvish was tipping his pitches on Friday night as the Yankees just absolutely teed off on him, just crushing home run after home run. And these were like upper deck jobs by their big hitters. Like I said, a guy like Darvish, if he's tipping his pitches, throwing that kind of stuff, man, you know those balls are going fast and far, and that's exactly what happened on Friday. The Padres look to bounce back with Dylan Cease on the mound here up against Marcus Stroman. Identical ERAs for these guys at 3.05, but Stroman pitching the better baseball recently at 2.37. But really, that's all really one bad Cease outing there that shows the bulk of it. The Padres actually hitting right-handed pitching recently better than the Yankees, 290 versus 273 and 271 versus 257 for the season. I gotta believe that the Padres bounce back in this one and Cease keeps them in it. I'll take the Padres in the first 5, and that'll be my pick for this game. For our next and final game, we head to Arizona, where the Diamondbacks are taking on the Marlins. It's Jordan Montgomery on the mound for the Diamondbacks, and it's Sixto Sanchez on the mound for the Marlins. What we saw on Friday night was pretty typical for what we've seen from the Diamondbacks. They can't beat National League East teams. 0-6 in their last 6 games versus the National League East. In this one, Montgomery's numbers have been receding. They're going in the wrong direction. He's got a 4.98 ERA this season. Meanwhile, for Sixto Sanchez, this guy throws as hard and fast as anybody in baseball. 6.41 ERA for the season, but improving to a 4.26 over his last 3 starts. Still not very good, but still better than Montgomery's numbers. We look at the way the Marlins are hitting the baseball recently. That's why they're improving. In fact, they're hitting lefties at 263 over their last 10 games, while the Diamondbacks 268 versus righties. Probably going to see some runs here, but I'll tell you what, I like the Marlins in this one. Lots of value, and that's going to be my pick for the first 5. And that wraps up today's first halves and first 5s. This is Mitch from PickDawgz. We appreciate you tuning in, and of course, if you're looking for our best bets, those are always our premium picks. You can find those at PickDawgz.com. Click on the premium picks tab. I also have a link in the description. If you're looking for cool PickDawgz merch, like the stuff that our PickDawgz crew wears, like the zip up I'm wearing and the hat I'm wearing, these are all available on the website under the merch tab. I also have a link in the description of this video as well. Thanks again for everyone for joining me. We'll be back tomorrow with another first half and first 5 videos, and we're going to continue doing this video all year long. Thanks again for being part of the PickDawgz family.